Good evening, welcome to Dharma Punx, Seattle. Today's topic is the 5 subjects of frequent recollection. And the point of these, obviously, is to be frequently recollected. And it's derived from a sutta. It's also derived from a Buddhist chant. And after each one, they say to be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. So, what the 5 frequent recollections are really about it's about right effort. It's about being able to orient the mind toward things that often, when we engage with them, our mind will want to bounce off. Or, I think even for those of us, who maybe have darker interests and personalities, when we think of death, even we don't really think about the ways that that is imminent and possible. We tend to just be I'm super cool with death, but the reality of that and I believe that one of the primary focuses of the Buddhist practice is orienting us toward suffering, right? Toward how do we live with suffering. And I think often when we come into Buddhist practice, it's to start unpacking the past suffering, start sorting that shit out. But what the 5 frequent recollections is actually, it's a brace, it's a shield for future suffering. Because, I think something I talk about often, I think that there's a part of me that in my own relationship to healing, in my own relationship to therapy and Buddhism, that if I work hard enough, bad things won't happen to me. And that's not what Buddhism says anywhere, right? It's really the brace for reality. And so I'll go through what the 5 frequent recollections are. I'll talk more about them after. So they go, we are of the nature to age. We have not gone beyond aging. We are of the nature to sicken. We have not gone beyond sickness. We are of the nature to die. We have not gone beyond dying. Then a take on impermanence. Everything I own, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. And then a sort of nod toward delusion. I am the owner of my karma. I am the owner of my actions. I am the creator of my actions. So everything that I do, for good or for ill, of that I am the heir. So a nod to everything that we do day to day, moment to moment. I think often we think of that one as the big things we do, the job we take. That's the karma. But it's also just, showing up here, or the way we turned our heart and mind, when we were doing the dishes, when we wanted to be hateful, right? Like that is also where we collect karma. So I'll talk more about it after, but the discussion for today is how would it change your relationship to your life if, you know, like the chant said, to be reflected upon again and again, if that was something that you took on as a practice. And this isn't saying that you have to take it on as a practice, but if you did, what would be perhaps the air of your actions? So if you're tuning in via YouTube, go ahead and meditate on the topic or journal or take a snack break.
Adding a new option this week.
It's probably what most people do. If we're being real. Smoke break. Let's die, everybody.
Doing that meditation.
Finding a comfortable way to sit that is upright. Adjusting the posture so the spine, each vertebrae stacked one on top of the other. A symbol of right effort. Taking in that big inhale, that first noticing of the breath. Feeling it as it fully expands the lungs and chest. And as it deflates. Finding the breath wherever it settles easiest for you. It can be the tip of the nose, in the abdomen, or the rise and fall of the chest. It doesn't matter which one, just stick with the one you choose. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. The Buddha said this. We hear this often in meditation, but what does it mean to know? Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. taking some time to appreciate beyond just noticing the breath, but the life the lungs are providing. And that although we sit here maybe mildly uncomfortable, with our woes, with our despair, with our suffering, there are people in this world who would trade places millions of people. And we have this preciousness of health, and recollecting I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. And it's one thing to repeat the words in our head, but what would it mean to understand? Sickness is everywhere, and what a privilege we have. allowing the breath with its life to expand through the entire body. Maybe going from nose to belly and continuing to expand the breath through the top of the head, down the arms to the fingertips. Down the legs. In this space, bringing to mind the way that aging and sickness can transform the body. Whether we admit it to ourselves or not, what we're often very identified with, this body. Reflecting on how the skin will wrinkle and sag. Bones become brittle. Daily tasks become harder. Our immune systems become weak. Frail. And either the toll of our previous actions or a spontaneous virus leads us to death. We hope that we die old, but we don't know this. That is not certain. We only know that death is certain. And so taking this moment to imagine your corpse at any age. It could be present day you. If that feels too difficult, you can imagine yourself older. Don't push yourself. The point is to be able to engage with little resistance. Recollecting the immediate consequences of your death. Who finds out? The missed work call. The concerned friends and family. And tears of grief. That you mattered. And your loved ones gathering your body, putting you in a casket, lowering you into the earth. to be visited infrequently, but remembered nonetheless. The things they might say in your eulogy. Allowing the awareness to note any resistance in the body. Softening the belly, the jaw. Your body decays. Eaten by the worms, and critters. Just like you sit in a cemetery filled with hundreds, not thousands, of other corpses. Things feel like they're taking a bit of a dark turn. You can add brightness, metta, loving kindness. alchemizing it with death to not scare you. But to understand a basic fact that is no different than 1 + 1. Wherever you are, coming back to your point with the breath. Taking that big inhale. And exhale once again. Grounding. Perhaps tapping into that appreciation from earlier. And when you hear the sound of the bell, holding on to the breath as your eyes transition from closed to open. I often say welcome back when after a meditation, and I never really understand why, because nobody's going anywhere, but now I feel like saying welcome back makes a little bit more sense. Hope you experienced a decent death. A couple of years ago, John mentioned this earlier, not a couple of years ago, in 2019, that was a while ago now. Noah was coming up here to give a series monthly on this practice called A Year to Live. His father wrote this book called A Year to Live. And throughout that experience, we would read the book together, those of us who were in this group, and take it chapter by chapter and, live as though we only had a year left, and did a lot of practice around that. And at the time, I was definitely newer in my practice, still had some years under my belt, but my relationship to it then was so much of like bucket list, like I gotta go these places, I gotta do this shit, like what can I do in that practice was a really big thing that I was drawn toward. And I can't say that ultimately the practice made me fearless of death. That is not the case. I am not fearless of death. But the shift that did occur was things becoming less about the things that I needed to get before I die, and how can I be more present before I die. Somewhere in there, a shift happened. And, not to say that the bucket list things aren't important, and that, if you really had the diagnosis, a year to live, maybe some of those things are good. But the way that these subjects of frequent recollection remind us of the value of the moment that, we often take for granted, our fine-ish health, our good enough health. That we often take for granted that we're, not currently in hospice or struck by a sudden car accident. Some of these things that are quite common but unavoidable. And, I think that on some level there's like that cognitive dissonance of like, that couldn't happen to me. And I can't say for sure, but I imagine on some level that any one of those people who were struck in that way probably had a similar approach to life. That wouldn't happen to me. I'm supposed to die of old age and, have all my loved ones surrounding me, and, I get to say the thing I want to say, and I've done all the things I've wanted to do, and that will be that, or something. And we aren't promised that. We're not promised that we get to choose the way that we die. And so the purpose of the frequent recollections is to bring us directly into this moment, into, I even, all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become separated from me. Like, granted, this Dharma Punx thing, it's new, it's still growing, but like, this church could burn down tomorrow. There might not be a Dharma Punx next week. Like, we just don't know. And so how do I engage with the people that come here, the space in a different way, understanding that, I might not be able to revisit that thing. Many people have talked about the way that when people pass on in our lives, wishing that we would have said that one last thing, not having been able to say all the things that we wanted to say because we were afraid, probably because we were afraid. I can't really think of that many other reasons that we wouldn't have said it, or just it didn't seem important. Well, I'll get around to it later. And what if we left the people that we loved as though we might not ever fucking see them again? Do they know? Do the people in your life know what you mean to them? What they mean to you? Thank you. Ajahn Sumedho tells this story. I like that in his early years of practice, and for those who aren't aware of who Ajahn Sumedho is, he's potentially one of the enlightened people. He's not allowed to say so, because that would cancel it out immediately. But there are suspicions that he could have obtained enlightenment, that he could have obtained the deathless. And so he tells this story in his early monastic years, which is also, just a cool thing. I'm going to precurse with, here is perhaps evidence of somebody who has become liberated and they can tell this story, right? So he was training under Ajahn Chah, and after about 5 years of practice, they're allowed to say, "Peace out, teacher, I'm gonna go do my own thing." And Ajahn Sumedho was somebody who preferred more hermetic practices. He didn't really want to, usually around 5 years is when they're supposed to start giving talks and being more engaged in the community. He wasn't into people. He wanted, the quietness and the stillness of meditation. And so he went off to a mountain. And, there he delighted in being able to meditate in the vistas, and he would have to travel down the mountain every day to get his food from the villagers that lived nearby. And one of the days that he was walking down the mountain, he injured his foot pretty severely, and so he could not climb. It's not just like a little hike up, it's like a fucking mountain climb to get back up. He also didn't have shoes. So here's that. And so he injures his foot, he can't get back up the mountain, and the only place he has to stay in the fucking hottest of hot of Thailand is this little fucking hut with a tin roof. And so he is able to contact the villagers, and the doctor has to come in on horseback because that's how fucking secluded this mountain village is. And the doctor comes in riding in every day and gives him his medicine, but besides that, he's just fucking laid up in a tin house, essentially baking. And he talks about that there's there's all of these gnats and flies that he can't really move very well, and they're trying to go in his ears and in his nose, and it's just it's fucking shit. This is not ideal conditions. And so after a few days of suffering, he eventually decides he's going to meditate because I think at a certain point, the recognition of, okay, apparently the way that I'm approaching this isn't helping. Maybe there's another way. What happens if I just let go. You know, because it's very easy when we're in these conditions where we're fucking hot and in severe physical pain, and when we're, you know, annoyed by the surroundings, that we're gonna suffer. You know, we want to be up on top of the mountain where everything is just so pleasant and just the way that I like it. You know, I've got my Netflix, and I've got my pizza, and I've got my Instagram, and I've got, you know, all my little things, all my little things on top of my mountain to make me feel perfect. And you know, so he talks about how that experience became a teacher for him regarding the subjects of frequent recollection. You know, although he wasn't ill, there's some level of like sort of the parallel of the physical body sort of failing and illness, and feeling like you're dying, even if you're not actually dying. That was another part of it, was he couldn't, for whatever reason, eat the food that was being given, so he was also like actually starving. He felt like he was gonna die. And the orientation that happens when we are able to, because a lot of what the 5 recollections point to is the things that we cling to that are the self, right? We want our bodies to be beautiful, just so, young, right? We take many measures to try to preserve them and present them in such a way. And illness, right? Being able to not always combat these things. You know, my own grandmother, you know, was maybe not the shining beacon of health, but like just had a very sudden brain aneurysm. Just like the brain popped one day. That's in my genetic DNA. Like, that scares the shit out of me, that one day my brain could just pop. And so bringing the subjects for frequent recollection do seem like very fucking dark, very fucking downer, right? Like, everything you love is going to be separated. You're going to die. Get cool with it. Because like we said in the meditation, this isn't meant to be something that is scary. It's like just a fact. 1 + 1 = 2. Birth and death. Impermanence. If we haven't figured that one out yet. And so learning to make friends with not only fear but grief, because those are going to be along with us on this ride. I think I said in the beginning that Buddhism aims us toward enlightenment, but it also just is a preparation for death. So that way, whenever we do die, we can try to be at peace, be at ease with it. And I feel like often when you hear people say like, oh, to be at ease with something that's really hard, to be at ease in sickness, or to be at ease in aging or death, that means people think happy about it. And it's not about being happy. We're not happy we're dying. We're not happy that we're aging. We're not happy that, we're sick. We are at ease. We're in acceptance of, yeah, this was always going to be taken from me. My health, my looks, all of it was going to be taken from me. And that's where the peace comes in. It's not saying you didn't also experience grief, you know, but taking out the clinging, right? Because that's where the suffering comes in when we start to age, when we get sick, right? We get sick and we're like, I'm not supposed to be this way. I'm supposed to be healthy. And, you know, we like fucking hate it. We hate it. Rather than just, oh, this just happens. A condition, a side effect of being human, of birth, is that like we get sick. And being at ease with that of like, okay, this is not my favorite operating human mode, but I'm not going to resist it. I'm not going to hate it. I'm not going to cling to the version of me that was healthy, because that's what we want, right? Like we're just like, okay, can we hurry up and get past this part so I can be healthy and I can do all the things and become again. I want to become again. The next week, we will do something a little different. One of the things that I find personally missing in my life, in this culture, is that people pass away and then it's like, get back to work. What, you're not over it yet? Like, why are you crying? We have a very coarse relationship to death. We don't take time to remember our dead, because I think it reminds us of death. We don't take time to remember aging, right? We just shove all the old people in homes so we never have to look at them. You know, I think that's one of the fascinating things about the Buddha's story, is that was sort of what set him off on his journey. Was, you know, he had been sort of a pampered prince, never seen such things before, and then you know, went out and saw people dying, saw people sick, saw elderly people. Can you imagine just like you've never seen an elderly person and for the first time you're like, ah, that's me, fuck. And he was like, okay, like I gotta figure this shit out. That was, you know, like we say, suffering is the point of all this, but that was the motivating factor. He was like, I gotta get cool with this shit. Because I am not cool with this shit. I'm not cool with losing shit. I'm not cool with dying. I'm not cool with sickness. So next week I'd like to make it more of a community space to recollect those that we know who have passed on. I'll bring some candles and we can light them in the beginning. I will let people talk about them. I think that is one of the difficult things about the people that have passed on, is like we just don't have a space to talk positively about them, right? To remember them in a way. And I know in some ways maybe that seems like anti-Buddhist, just like let it go. And it's like, no, this is honor, reverence. You know, I think that we would hope that people would do that for us. So, so we'll talk more about death next week. Just keep that train going. Any thoughts or questions? I think I had a shorter beginning, so we're going to wrap up here a little early. I don't think that there's any coming in on YouTube, but you can drop it in the chat.
Can you repeat the fifth recollection?
Yeah, I didn't really get into that one too much. The fifth one has to do with karma. So it is, make sure I get this one right. It's a little tongue twisty. I am the owner of my karma, related to my karma, born of my karma. Any action that I do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir.
So is that there to kind of relate it back to ownership of all the other things that you're losing, like the consequences of your choices?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's some level of like, you know, it can kind of tie in some of the things that are missed under aging, death, and impermanence. Like sometimes like we just kind of put ourselves in positions that we, you know, might meet certain qualities like death or sickness early. I think it's also there, you know, because there's another one, there's the 10 subjects of frequent recollection. So they're really supposed to be the 5 most penetrating ways of deconstructing the self. That through recollecting karma, we can find ourselves more in tune with the moment, rather than sort of that lamenting of like, oh, you know, the misfortune of my circumstances, right? I don't know if anybody has worked the refuge recovery inventory, but that's my favorite question in the refuge recovery inventory is like, what misfortunes have you experienced? And it's like kind of a trick question, because it's like, oh, I mean, like I think there are some things that like, you know, we don't have control over, but a lot of the things that we think are misfortunes is just our karma playing out. So.
And then what's the difference between karma and karma?
2 different words. One of them is Pali and one is Sanskrit. So it's the same word said differently. So same with Dharma. The other, you could also say Dhamma, means the same thing. Okay. Well, I will leave it there. I was waiting for you to close it, but.
You're not gonna do the whole.
Oh.
There's like 3 more steps. I was getting the memo link.
Okay. I forgot that. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Donna, if you're able to donate, these teachings are offered freely, but $5 to $10 suggested donation to help us pay rent and other costs that might incur. Anything that goes above and beyond is sent to the Mothership Against the Stream Meditation Center.
Venmo link will show up in the chat eventually.
Okay.
There we go.
We'll dedicate the merit. So if you would like, you can put your hands together, no pressure. May any goodness that arose from my practice today be given, spread above and below, to the seen and the unseen, to those being currently born and to those who are